I never believed in ghosts or paranormal activities. I was a skeptic, always searching for logical explanations for everything. It was my job as a journalist to dig deep and uncover the truth. But that all changed when I came across a story that would change my life forever. This is the story of the vanishing townsfolk and my encounter with the mysterious disappearances in a small town called Willow Creek. It was a quiet Monday morning when I received a call from my editor asking me to investigate the strange happenings in Willow Creek. He had received multiple emails from concerned residents claiming that people were disappearing without a trace. At first, I thought it was just another prank or a publicity stunt. But as I delved deeper, I realized there was more to this story than I could have ever imagined. I packed my bags and headed towards Willow Creek, a small town nestled in the mountains of Northern California. As I drove closer to my destination, I couldn't help but notice the eerie silence that surrounded the town. There were no cars on the roads, no people walking on the streets. It was almost like a ghost town. I checked into my motel and decided to explore the town. The few people I came across seemed on edge, looking over their shoulders as if they were being watched. I approached an elderly woman sitting on a bench and asked her about the disappearances. She stared at me with terrified eyes and whispered, "They took my son. They took him and I never saw him again." Her words sent chills down my spine, and I knew I had to find out more. I spent the next few days talking to the townsfolk, trying to piece together what had happened. Each person I spoke to had a similar story. Their loved ones had vanished without a trace. No one had any explanation or any idea where they had gone. It was like they had disappeared into thin air. I decided to visit the town's history museum, hoping to find some clues that could lead me to the truth. As I made my way through the old building, I stumbled upon an old newspaper article. It was dated back to the 1800s and told the story of a forest fire that ravaged the town, reducing it to ashes. The article also mentioned the disappearance of several people during and after the fire. Could this be the reason behind the recent disappearances? I needed to do more research. I returned to the motel and spent hours going through old archives and newspaper clippings. My heart skipped a beat when I found a disturbing pattern. Every time a forest fire had occurred in Willow Creek, people had vanished. But there was no explanation, no evidence, just empty spaces where the missing people once were. I decided to venture into the forest to see if I could find any clues. As I followed a dirt trail, I started to feel a sense of unease. The trees seemed to be closing in on me, and I could hear strange whispers coming from the shadows. I shook it off, thinking it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, I saw something that made me freeze in fear, a figure standing in the distance, watching me. It was a humanoid figure with glowing red eyes, and its presence sent shivers down my spine. Without another thought, I turned and ran back to town, fearing for my safety. The next morning, I woke up to find a note slipped under my door. It was a warning, telling me to leave Willow Creek before it was too late. But I couldn't just abandon the story, not when I was so close to finding the truth. I decided to go back into the forest, this time during the day. As I walked deeper into the woods, I stumbled upon a clearing with a large oak tree in the center. Underneath it, I found a pile of bones. Human bones. I was horrified, but I knew I had to keep digging. As I searched the area, I found old, rusty shackles attached to the tree. It became clear to me that this was the site of a mass grave. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This town, once a peaceful and thriving community, was hiding a dark and sinister secret. I had to bring this to light. I quickly made my way back to town, determined to expose the truth. But when I returned, I found that the town had vanished. It was as if it never existed. The buildings, the streets, the people, all gone. I was standing in the middle of an empty field, with no sign of civilization. I couldn't believe my eyes. Was this some kind of sick joke? It seemed like the warning note was right. I should have left when I had the chance. As I stood there, speechless and terrified, I heard a whisper behind me. I turned to find the same figure from the forest, but this time it was closer. I could see its twisted skeletal face, and it was reaching out towards me. In that moment, I knew I had to run for my life. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't look back until I reached the main road. When I finally caught my breath, I realized that I was holding onto something in my hand, a small locket with the name Evelyn engraved on it. It must have belonged to one of the missing townsfolk. I decided to leave Willow Creek and never look back. I wrote my story, exposing the truth behind the town's dark history and the terrifying disappearances. It was published in a few local newspapers, but most people refused to believe it. They thought it was just another horror story, a figment of my imagination. But I knew the truth, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that the vanishing townsfolk of Willow Creek were still out there, waiting for their next victim. I never returned to that town, and I never will. To this day, I can't explain what happened to me in Willow Creek, but I know that it was the scariest and most unsettling experience of my life. And I will forever carry the memory of that mysterious and haunted town with me